Hello, welcome to my tutorial series, Object-Oriented Programming. So, continue from where we left off. At this stage, our form is only a simple form element, our web page. So, continue back with the code. Now we need to implement this controller class. The three information we need to implement the load model function will be a folder name, class name, and a file name. So, because we'll be moving this class, this class here, login model class, into a different folder, and we should give you a file name and save it in a folder name. So we need that information here to implement this method. Okay, so let's say, for instance, we want to call that method load model function. Bracket, curly bracket, end of function block. And now we want to implement this method inside that block. Okay, you see, so because we want this method to load other modules as well, we want to create a parameter for that name. So call it module name. The parameter I want to define here is a module name. So wherever we say login in this equation, we can separate that with a variable name. So you put your single quotes to separate all your strings, and then dot dot for your variable name. So we want to replace login with a variable name. Therefore, when you supply that parameter upon invocation of this function, it will load login for you, or any other module. So we can use that to load any other module as well. Okay, so we call that out, and then put our variable in there. And if there's no string coming before the variable name, you don't need to put a dot there. Okay, so this is how you separate your variables and your strings on the same line of code. So we've got that established. Now, before you can create instance of a class, if it's in a different folder, you have to require it first. And then wraparound single quotes, end of statement. Then you need you need a folder name. Let's call that folder modules. And you also need to call that login module.php. Okay, so this is the file name for this login module. So we can say, okay, if we separate that login from that equation, and wrap up all our strings in single quotes. If we separate login from that equation, that means we can require any other module, not just login module, and replace it with a variable name. So the same variable name for login, anywhere you say login, you replace it with a variable name. And this is how we create your parameters for unknown values to be supplied later upon the invocation of this method. So you see what we're doing now. We've got our modules folder, we've got our file extension, and we've got a class name. So we can, so we don't need that anymore. So we follow the same naming convention. Any other module we want to save in that modules folder should have module.php appended to that module name. And that name should be the same name as your controller name for that module. So to be consistent with our naming convention, it'll be easy to reference in the code. Now, at this stage, you may want to create your private properties for the known values. We know we've got a folder name, And we know we got a file extension. Put file extension right there. And then you need to create another variable and call that module last name. Module last name, for a reason, because you know that reason later. Likewise, dollar prefix variable name, dollar to prefix a variable name. Now, because variables, as you remember, hold values which can be retrieved later in your code. If those values are known, you supply it at the declaration of your variable name. So that's called initialization. We've got a folder name. Now we also need to do the same thing for the file extension. Assigning these variables now values. And then you replace those strings with their variable. End of your statement. Likewise, you do the same for your folder name. And that goes right there. Your folder name, module name, and file extension. See, so that's how you do that. You create all your properties. Okay. For the last name, that will take this string here. So that will take that string. So you copy that and assign it to that value, module last name. And now you have to replace that variable to represent that string, module last name. Okay. So now what you can do is to call that out and create a variable called module class and assign it to that variable. So call it a module class for the variable name. Now you are creating instance of that module class. See what you're doing with that function. Okay. So because there's a lot of explanation to do with this method, that's why I'm taking my time to explain it that way. Okay. Now you have to create a function underscore construct. This is how you create a constructor in PHP. Constructor means that any code that's wrapped up in that constructor method will run automatically upon the creation of instance of this class. Okay, so any code that is wrapped up in this method, constructor, will run automatically. So now we've done our constructor function. I will end this video here. So on the next video, I will call this method in this login class. When we create instance of this login, we can use that now to call these methods. That way we can use instance of the model class and instance of the view class in our controller class functions. All right, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.